My 7-year-old daughter, Ellie, stood at the edge of a crowded holiday table, dressed in the sparkly gold dress she had proudly picked out herself. Her tiny hands clutched a small gift box, wrapped with care. Around her, the room buzzed with laughter, clinking glasses, and holiday chatter. Everyone was too absorbed in their own conversations to notice her, everyone except me. I watched, my eyes never leaving her. She stepped forward slightly and looked directly at her grandmother, my husband's mother, and in a calm, steady voice said, "Grandma, Daddy told me to give this to you if you ever ignored me again." Time froze. Forks hovered midair. Conversations died. The soft background music melted into silence. Her grandmother, Carol, gave an awkward little smile as though Ellie was joking. But when she opened the box, she didn't laugh. She screamed. A raw, guttural sound tore through the room, louder than the Christmas carols, louder than the murmurs, louder than the silence that followed. Everyone rushed toward her to see what was inside the box. But I didn't need to look. I already knew. My husband, Noah, had prepared that box months ago. He told me it was meant for the day his mother finally crossed a line too far. That day had come. Let me tell you how we got here, how my daughter became invisible in a room filled with gifts, and how one small box shattered every artificial smile this family had been hiding behind for years. When I married Noah, I thought I was joining a big, warm, affectionate family. They were always loud. Always together, barbecues in the backyard, Friday game nights, extravagant holiday dinners. And in the middle of it all was Carol, his mother. She was magnetic, opinionated, a woman who could command a room with just a glance. I used to think that's what a strong matriarch looked like. I admired her. I wanted her to accept me. And at first, it seemed like she did. She smiled at our dinners, praised my cooking, gave me tight, affectionate hugs when we said goodbye. But it didn't take long. Before the mask slipped, she stopped adding me to family group texts. She'd make subtle comments about how I was different from the women in their family, how I didn't have the same upbringing or priorities. It was never cruel, never overt, just enough to make me wonder if I was imagining it. Then Ellie came into the picture. Ellie is my daughter from my first marriage. She was 2 when Noah met us. And from day one, he never hesitated. He embraced her with love, patience, and the kind of care every child deserves. When we got married, he adopted her legally. In our home, there's no step. She is his daughter. He is her dad. But Carol never accepted that. At first, she pretended. She gave Ellie birthday cards or small holiday trinkets. But the difference in how she treated her compared to her other grandchildren, Maddie and Jordan, was glaring. Ellie didn't get invited to sleepovers with the cousins. She wasn't included in the group Christmas pajama photos. During family gatherings, she'd sit quietly while the other kids were showered with attention. Carol would gush about how Maddie was her little princess, buy Jordan the latest sports gear, and then toss Ellie a coloring book or a generic toy, something clearly bought without thought. And Ellie noticed. Kids always do. I tried to make excuses. I told her grandma was forgetful, that she cared in her own way. But every year, the divide became harder to ignore. At one Thanksgiving, Carol had custom plates made for each grandchild, names painted in gold. Ellie's seat had a plain dish pulled from the back of the cupboard. That night, Ellie whispered to me, "Maybe she thinks I'm just visiting." I had no idea how to answer. But Noah heard it too. He didn't say anything, but his jaw clenched so tightly I thought he might crack a tooth. That was the first moment I realized maybe he was finally seeing what I had been seeing all along. Still, we kept showing up. I told myself it was for the greater good, for family unity, for tradition, for Ellie to grow up surrounded by cousins and memories. I told myself love didn't need to be proven with matching pajamas or fancy presents. But the truth was, I was lying to myself. I was staying quiet because I didn't want to rock the boat. I didn't want Noah to have to choose between his mother and me. And every time I bit my tongue, I told myself I was doing the right thing, teaching Ellie how to be the bigger person. What I didn't realize was that I was teaching her to accept being treated as lesser. Noah and I had quiet arguments about it, hushed conversations late at night after Ellie was asleep. He'd admit he noticed, but say he didn't know what to do. He didn't want to hurt his mom. What about Ellie? I'd ask. He'd nod, promise to talk to Carol someday. Then, silence. By the time this Christmas came around, I was emotionally exhausted. I still packed coordinated outfits for the kids. I still brought homemade cookies. I still wrapped thoughtful gifts for every family member. I still whispered to myself, maybe this year will be different. But something in me had shifted. I wasn't hoping anymore. I was watching, waiting, preparing for the moment when silence would no longer be the kindest choice. And that moment arrived sooner than I expected. It was in the way Carol handed Maddie a brand new tablet, how she hugged Jordan with beaming pride before slipping him an envelope filled with money. Then she turned to Ellie, passed her a lavender candle, and said with a dry smile, "Didn't want you to feel totally left out." I looked at Noah. He didn't say a word. He didn't blink, but something behind his eyes changed. That's when I remembered he hadn't forgotten the box. Neither had Ellie. Carol's house looked like it belonged on the cover of a holiday magazine. A towering artificial tree stood proudly in the corner, perfectly trimmed in gold and white. Every ornament hung with precision. Every light twinkled in harmony. The fireplace glowed warmly beneath a garland of pine and red ribbons. Under the tree, presents spilled outward like a cascade of glittering boxes, the kind of picture-perfect setting that should have felt magical. But the moment I stepped inside with Ellie, something in my stomach twisted. She walked ahead of me, curls bouncing, gold dress shimmering with every step. In her hands, she held two things, the candle Carol had given her earlier, and a smaller red box, carefully wrapped and tucked beneath her arm like it was something sacred. She had made a gift for Carol herself, a hand-painted wooden jewelry box with glittery rhinestones she glued on in art class. She'd written "Grandma" across the lid in uneven but enthusiastic gold letters. She was so proud of it. She couldn't stop smiling on the ride over. Carol barely looked at her when we arrived. She swept Maddie up in a hug the moment we entered, exclaimed how much she had grown, kissed Jordan's cheek with affection, and handed Maddie a velvet pouch with a knowing wink. But when Ellie stepped forward with her handmade gift, Carol's smile thinned. She took the box from Ellie's hands without really looking, set it on a side table like a napkin she didn't want to carry, and said, "Hi there, sweetie. You look festive." That was it. Ellie glanced at me a quick, questioning look, then quietly moved to sit beside Maddie on the couch. The kids giggled and chattered as usual, but Ellie's voice was quieter, her shoulders pulled in, her gaze wandering more than joining. The adults settled into wine and conversation. I floated on the edges of it all, watching my daughter fade into the background of her own family. Eventually, Carol stood up and clapped her hands. "All right, time for presents." She always turned it into a little ceremony. Each grandchild was called up like royalty. The room clapped after every gift. Jordan was first. He opened a thick envelope of cash. Cheers all around. Maddie followed, an iPad and a crystal bracelet set. She jumped up to hug Carol so tightly the tablet nearly dropped. Then, Carol turned to Ellie. She held up a tiny gift bag, plain, unmarked, no ribbon, and said, "This one's for you, darling. Didn't want you to feel completely forgotten." Ellie stood slowly and walked to the center of the room. Inside the bag was a single lavender-scented candle. Nothing else. No card. No name. No thought. The label on it simply read, "To Noah's girl." That was all. I stared at it. At her. At Carol. At my husband. Noah sat on the edge of the couch, hands clasped together so tightly his knuckles were white. His face was unreadable, locked in place. Ellie walked back to her seat with the candle in her lap. She didn't cry. She didn't pout. But I could see it the way she curled in on herself. That quiet kind of disappointment that settles into a child's bones, the kind they carry long after the party ends. Carol moved on as though nothing had happened. She laughed and passed out more gifts. Dessert was served. Toasts were made. But I wasn't really hearing any of it. I couldn't take my eyes off Ellie. She stayed polite, even smiled faintly when people looked her way, even whispered a quiet thank you to Carol when asked. But it wasn't the kind of thank you that meant anything. Later, in the kitchen, I pulled Noah aside. "You need to say something," I whispered. She didn't even call her by name. She handed her a candle and called her your girl like she's a stray guest. Noah didn't answer immediately. He took a deep breath and said quietly, I told Ellie she could give her the box if it ever happened again. I blinked. You're serious? He nodded. She remembered. That night, on the drive home, Ellie sat silently in the back seat, holding the candle in one hand, the red box in the other. Her voice was barely above a whisper when she asked, Is Grandma mad at me? I turned around and reached for her hand, but Noah spoke first. No, honey, he said gently. Grandma just forgot something important. But I think she's about to remember. Ellie looked down at the box resting on her lap. I want to give this to her. Tomorrow, she said with certainty. I looked at her, not a child in that moment, but someone older, firmer. She wasn't looking for permission. She had already decided. When we got home, I helped her out of the car. She held both the candle and the box as if they were breakable memories. There was no crying, no asking for comfort, just a quiet stillness that felt like steel. I asked if she wanted to watch a movie before bed. She shook her head. I want to get ready for tomorrow, she said. I froze. Tomorrow? Brunch, she replied. At Grandma's. I'm giving her the box. That was the first moment I felt something shift in me, not fear, not anger, just awe. Awe at how clearly Ellie had decided this was the line. The moment. She wasn't waiting anymore. She wasn't going to be invisible. Later that night, as I brushed her curls, Noah walked in. She looked up and asked him, Can I still give it to her? He crouched down, smiled softly, and said, Yes, baby. It's your choice. I told you that from the start. Her smile was small, not the kind she gave when we promised a trip to the zoo. It was deeper, more knowing. A smile from someone who understood exactly what they were about to do and why. After she went to sleep, I turned to Noah. What's in the box? He looked tired. He sat at the edge of the bed and finally said, The day of Jordan's birthday party, do you remember that? She asked me if she was someone's cousin too. I nodded. I remembered. I had tried to forget. That night, he said, I printed the adoption papers again. I wrote her a letter. I packed the photo of us the day I held her for the first time after court. I told her she could give it to Mom if she ever felt like she didn't belong again. I stared at him, eyes stinging. And you didn't tell me? I didn't want to drag you into another fight, he whispered. But I needed her to know she had a choice. That someone saw it. That someone stood with her. Noah had spent years waiting, hoping for peace, hoping things would just fix themselves. But now I saw it. He had stopped waiting. He had drawn the line, not with a speech, not with rage, but by giving our daughter the right to say, enough. The next morning, Ellie got ready like it was the most important day of the year. She asked if she could wear her gold dress again. She sat patiently while I redid her curls. She chose her favorite glittery headband, the same one she wore the day Noah adopted her. She didn't say it was for luck. She didn't need to. I already understood. In the car, she held the red box on her lap with both hands, her fingers gently pressed against the wrapping paper. She didn't fidget. She didn't speak. She just waited. Carol's house was exactly the same wreath on the door, the same cinnamon sweet air, the same perfectly arranged brunch spread. Her greetings were as polished as ever. She told Maddie how beautiful she looked, complimented Jordan's new haircut, nodded toward Ellie but didn't mention the dress or ask how school was going. But something felt different this time, not in the room, but in us. We weren't walking in hoping to be included. We were walking in already knowing we belonged with or without their permission. Brunch passed with the usual pleasantries. Ellie barely touched her food. Carol praised Maddie's outfit 3 times. Not once did she look at Ellie directly. When the table began clearing and desserts were passed around, Ellie stood up. No one noticed at first. Then the room slowly hushed as she walked to the head of the table and stood in front of Carol. She placed the red box on the tablecloth in front of her grandmother. Her voice didn't shake. "Grandma," she said clearly, "Daddy told me to give this to you if you ever ignored me again." Every fork froze. Every whisper died. The silence was complete. Carol laughed nervously. "What's this, sweetheart?" she asked, as if Ellie had handed her a joke. Ellie didn't respond. She simply turned around, walked back to her seat, and sat down beside me. Noah reached under the table and held my hand tightly. Carol hesitated. Then, performing for the room, she picked up the box like it was a prank, raised an eyebrow, chuckled softly, but her smile faltered as she peeled back the red paper. Slowly, almost theatrically. Then the lid came off. On top was a photo in a white frame. Noah holding Ellie on the day of her adoption. She was beaming, frosting on her cheeks, arms tight around his neck. Below the picture, in gold cursive letters, read, "Day 1 Dad." Underneath was an envelope. Carol's hand trembled slightly as she opened it. The first paper was a clean copy of Ellie's adoption certificate, stamped, notarized, undeniable. Noah's name written in bold beneath father. She blinked. Once, twice. Her lips tightened. Then came the letter. Noah's handwriting. He didn't move as she read, but I felt his grip on my hand tighten. Carol's lips moved in silence, her eyes scanning line by line, the color slowly draining from her face. It said, "Mom, if you're reading this, it means you've hurt my daughter again, not just in passing, but in a way she understood, in a way she felt. Ellie is not just mine by love, she's mine by law, by oath, by choice. I've watched you treat her like an outsider while pretending she's part of the family. I kept hoping you'd see her the way I do. But if she had to hand you this box, it means she finally saw what I've seen all along. That to you, she isn't real, but she is. She's my daughter. She is your granddaughter. And if you cannot love her the way you love Maddie and Jordan, then you do not love me. I will not allow her to grow up begging for a place in a family she already belongs to. I will not let her question her worth to protect your comfort. If you cannot accept her fully, you are no longer welcome in our home, our life, or her future." Noah, when she finished, Carol dropped the letter like it had burned her fingers. Her face went pale. She scanned the room as if someone might come to her rescue, but no one moved. Then, in a voice loud enough to shatter the illusion, she screamed. Not a cry, not a gasp, a full, visceral scream as if something inside her cracked wide open. She stood so abruptly her chair scraped the floor. Maddie jumped. Jordan froze with a cookie halfway to his mouth. Carol's sister reached out to steady the table, but Carol had already backed away. "I can't believe you'd humiliate me like this," she hissed. Noah stood, calm, steady. "We didn't humiliate you," he said. "You did that all by yourself." She pointed at me then. "This is her doing. She poisoned you against your own mother." I stood too. I didn't yell. I didn't flinch. "No," I said quietly. "Ellie gave you a gift. She gave you a chance to see her. You chose not to." For a long moment, the only sound was the faint crackle of the fireplace. Ellie sat at the table, calm, watching. Not scared, not confused, just watching the truth unfold. Noah looked at her and held out his hand. "Ready?" She nodded and stood. I gathered our coats, helped her into hers. No one stopped us. No one said goodbye. We walked out, Noah, Ellie, and me, leaving behind the gold ornaments, the perfect china, the carefully crafted illusion. In the car, Ellie buckled herself in and stared forward. She didn't say anything right away. Then she asked softly, "Do you think she read the whole letter?" Noah glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "Every word," he said. Ellie smiled, just slightly, but I saw it. Something in her had settled. Not because Carol had changed, but because she didn't need her to anymore. We never went back. No more forced holidays. No more strained phone calls. No more pretending. Carol didn't call. We didn't chase her. For the first time in years, our home was quiet, in a way that felt peaceful. At first, I thought Ellie might ask about her. I expected confusion, sadness, but what I saw instead was a quiet relief. She stopped watching the door at gatherings, stopped measuring her value by someone else's cold approval. Then, a week after Christmas, a small padded envelope came in the mail. It was addressed to Ellie. Inside was a silver bracelet with a heart charm, and a handwritten note from Maddie. "I'm sorry Grandma was mean. You're my cousin forever. I picked this with my allowance." Ellie read the note twice, then slid the bracelet onto her wrist. She didn't ask if she could wear it every day. She just did. That little gesture, that quiet act of solidarity meant more to her than 100 presents ever could. And it reminded me, kids don't need perfection. They need to feel chosen. They need to feel seen. As for Noah, something changed in him too. He had spent years torn between two worlds, trying to make peace where peace didn't belong. Trying not to choose. But now, he had. One night, I walked past Ellie's room and found him sitting at the edge of her bed while she slept, just watching her. He looked up at me and whispered, "I should have done it sooner." I shook my head. "You did it the moment she needed you most." We built new traditions. Small ones, slow ones, honest ones. We decorated cookies for neighbors. We built pillow forts and had movie nights in pajamas. We didn't try to replace what was lost. We just filled our lives with what was real. People talk about cutting off toxic family like it's easy. Like it's a single decision. It's not. It hurts, even when it's right. But nothing hurts more than watching your child shrink to fit someone else's comfort. We won't do that again. That day at Carol's table wasn't about revenge. It was about Ellie taking up space, claiming her place in a family that kept trying to treat her like a guest. It was about her saying, without raising her voice, "I belong."